Joined now by Jim Kleinpeter of the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. Jim, thanks for your time. A lot of excitement in the air with the start of spring ball for LSU, but so many holes for the Tigers to fill. Those 13 juniors that defected and departed for the NFL. Is that a positive thing for the program, or in what ways can that possibly hurt the Tigers this year?
Well, I can't see how it's positive. It's positive for the younger players because they're going to get a lot of snaps, whereas they would probably have been brought along slowly. And I don't remember, in the time I've covered LSU, I don't remember this much of a turnover. It will help. It probably helped them in recruiting. I mean, the guys that they signed knew that they would come in and have a chance to play, and probably helped them there. But otherwise, they've got to depend on some young guys, and a lot of times you don't know how good they are until they get on the field, and sometimes that's too late and can cost you a game or two.
Now, one big junior coming back for his final senior season, quarterback Zach Mettenberger. He came here a few years back with plenty of potential, plenty of expectations, hasn't really quite lived up to the hype. What do you expect from Zach this spring and moving into this 2013 season?
Well, toward the end of the season, I thought it would be a natural progression, but I thought he regressed in the bowl game. He really struggled there, and some of it may have been what was going on around him. I think they had some problems on the offensive line, and I don't really know the nature of that, but just some massive breakdowns, and I think the early sacks in that game hurt him, but he seemed to be coming along at the end of the year. I mean, he played maybe his best game against Alabama, and go figure that. I think he will benefit greatly from the new offensive coordinator. It's not an O-line coach who's running the offense anymore. It's a former quarterback who understands what they're thinking, and he can probably relate to Zach on a level, perhaps which he has not been able to relate with an offensive coordinator in his 5 years of being in college. So I see him, the potential for him having a good year is really there if he wants to seize it.
New offensive coordinator Cam Cameron, like you're saying, is he really the missing piece for this LSU Tiger offense, which always has the potential but never seems to really have all the pieces falling the right way and really lacks that high-flying offensive attack that many Tiger fans would like to see? Is Cam Cameron the right fit here at LSU?
Well, I think 2 years ago they thought they had the guy, and I think they would have been right if Steve Cragthorpe had not taken ill like he did. He's the same type of guy. But Cam Cameron's about as good as LSU could do as hiring someone. It's just a coincidence that he's good friends with Les Miles, and that made it easy for him to get here. But Cam Cameron has a wonderful track record of developing quarterbacks. He hasn't been so good as a head coach, but when it comes to developing quarterbacks, you look at Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Joe Flacco credits his development because he started, as soon as he got to the NFL, he started with Cameron and really made a all-pro quarterback out of Gus Frerotte. Sure. Can you imagine that? So I think this is as good. This is all that Zach Mettenberger could ask for, and I think Les Miles feels the same. He's going to be very confident in him.
And Zach should also benefit from a strong and talented offensive line. Some changes, a couple people moving on. Chris Falk to the NFL. P.J. Lonergan was a senior last season. Lyle Collins, can he successfully make the move from guard to the left tackle position, and your overall thoughts on the offensive line?
Well, I'm sure everybody's wondering why they didn't just slide Collins over last year when Falk was hurt and let Josh Durasic play left guard, which was his previous position. I'm sure Les Miles has his reasons for not doing that. I think it had something to do with interrupting the continuity and not putting too much pressure on Collins. It may have been because Collins played heavy last year, because he mentioned that today that Collins was lighter and maybe more in a better place to play it, and I guess they're going to give him the first shot. Now, Les made it clear that this isn't a done deal. Gerald Hawkins is going to get a chance, and Les told me that he was considering moving. There's also a possibility of moving Vidal Alexander over from the right side and juggling things on the right side. So we'll see where that all goes. I think this is going to work. I think Collins will be comfortable there, and he'll be motivated because they pay left tackles a whole lot more than they pay left guards in the NFL.
They do get paid once they reach the pro ranks. All right, let's talk skill position players. Running backs and wide receivers, starting with the wideouts, a group that underachieved a bit last season, way too many drops. who are the key guys this spring, and are any of the newcomers, the early enrollees or future freshmen, going to play a role for this team?
Absolutely, and I got that impression from talking to Cameron and Miles that they're expecting pressure from these younger guys. They want them to pressure the older guys because, frankly, I think that was the biggest underachieving position group on the team last year was the wide receivers. Early in the season, it was drop passes, and I think throughout the season they struggled running routes, and that really hurt Mettenberger's confidence because when the receiver isn't where he's supposed to be, it looks like it's the quarterback's fault. Sometimes in an interception, sometimes an incomplete pass, and I think they really struggled. I think they lacked a real playmaker at receiver, a big guy who can jump, who can challenge a defensive back and take a ball away, a jump ball. But I think John Diarst, the kid from Neville Monroe, and then Avery Peterson, Patrick Peterson's younger brother, they're counting on those two guys to push. And they also wanted Travin Doral. They thought maybe he'd play some last year. He injured his knee and had to have surgery. So he is 100%. So I think all three of those guys are going to press the returning starters, Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, and Cadron Boone, going to push them really hard in the spring.
Plenty of offensive talent in the backfield as well. Maybe not as deep at the running back position, but some well-known names, Kenny Hilliard, Alfred Blue coming back from his injury, and of course Jeremy Hill coming off that fantastic freshman season. Do we look for more of the same, attack by committee in 2013?
I think so. It's been less his MO, and I think Cam Cameron comes from the same coaching tree. So they got all these good backs. You got to use them. Plus, if you've got a guy with speed, you got to get him in the game somewhere because you've got to attack defenses on the perimeter. And I think that may be Terrence McGee's role because Blue is coming off knee surgery. I don't know. Nobody really knows how he's going to respond. And of the four running backs, Blue and McGee are the two that can really turn up the jets and get to the corner. So I think Terrence McGee will probably play a lot more. I think they'll start out with Jeremy Hill, and why not? You know, he was really good last year, and I think he'll be better. And Kenny Hilliard supposedly is in better shape, so he may play a better role. I thought he kind of fell off last year.
Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. LSU, always known for a vaunted, talented defense. The D-line decimated by departures for the NFL. No more Sam Montgomery, Benny Logan, Kiki Mingo. Who's going to step up for the Tigers?
Well, I think the ends are where they're going to hurt the most because the playing time, they lost their top three ends when you throw in LeVar Edwards. But Jamari Orasco played a lot last year. People don't maybe not remember. He didn't make as many plays because he wasn't in the game as much, but he did play a lot of snaps. And the guy to watch is Daniil Hunter. They put him on kickoffs, and you can't play on kickoff coverage unless you can really run.
Right.
And you don't see too many defensive ends on kickoff coverage. He can run. He can get down the field. They love his athleticism. He probably benefited a lot from not having to play a lot of snaps, at defensive end and just getting his feet wet on special teams. But just watching him, he's a marvelous athlete and could be a bigger star than either Mingo or Sam Montgomery. Anthony Johnson's got to step up. He's the guy. I think he's the key guy on the line. Yeah, he's got to elevate his play. He had his moments last year. But sometimes he wasn't. He'd kind of disappear in a game. He got to play a lot of snaps. But I think they're counting on him to be the guy that Brockers was a year ago and that Benny Logan was, the guy that you build your defense around, the guy that creates havoc in the backfield. Ego Ferguson's a good player too, and then this kid Christian Lacouture, they like him as playing inside or out, so they're going to move him around.
Moving to the second line of defense, linebackers, a couple of veterans coming back, Lamine Barrow and Taj Jones as well. But the youth at that position, Les said today, may be the deepest of all the units. Your thoughts on the linebacking core?
Yeah, with that in mind, last year they brought in 6 linebackers, and I think every one of them played at least a few snaps. So you got a guy like Quan Alexander. They really are high on him. He's kind of a weak side linebacker, and he played in place of Taj Jones, but they got Taj Jones back too. So they really got a lot of talent here, not a lot of playing experience. Right. They may want to move Lamine Barrow to the middle. The key is to get the 3 best linebackers on the field. And I thought Deion Jones was really good last year. He backed up Barrow. So if they move Barrow inside, I would foresee Deion Jones being at the Mike linebacker, And then Quan Alexander on the other side, and Taj Jones kind of sharing that. But guys like Lamar Lewis and Ronnie Feast can play in the middle, and they got some snaps there last year. So they're going to. That's what spring's going to be for LSU. They're going to have linebackers in and out of every position, trying different spots and getting a lot of crossover there.
Some crossover in the secondary as well. Some younger names that got experience last year. LSU doesn't have the household names anymore. The Patrick Petersons, the Tyrann Mathieu, Morris Claiborne, and Eric Reed. They're all in the pros these days, or will soon be. Can these young corners hold up in 2013? And besides Craig Lawson as a proven veteran, who else will step up the safety position?
Well, Ronald Martin is probably going to step in at Eric Reed's the spot Eric Reed gave up. Micah Eugene, they like him there, and Jerquinic Sandoff, and then Corey Thompson. He was another guy late in the season. He came on special teams. So Corey Thompson's a name. I think he's going to play a lot of snaps, and I think they like their corners. I thought the two Jalen's, Collins and Mills, both played very well. Jalen Mills, I remember thinking, you don't hear too much about him,
right.
and for a cornerback, that's good.
Good thing.
That means, he's got his man covered and the quarterback's not throwing that way. I thought Jalen Collins was having a great year last year, and then he just got torched in the Ole Miss game to the point where they had to move Darrell Simon over and switch him off of a receiver that was just eating him up. But those guys, and then Dwayne Thomas, a local kid from New Orleans, they're high on him. He might have played last year if they hadn't had so many cornerbacks because he was that good, that good of raw cover skills. And if they refine him, he'll play a lot too.
We've talked offense and defense, but it's all about three phases. Special teams. Brad Wing, Drew Allamont, both gone. Who's going to step up this year?
I'm sure that James Hairston is going to be the guy that they look to, but Les always has a walk-on kicker in reserve. They always keep a couple of those guys around, and it's not going to be Mo Isom. So, but I think they're in good hands punting-wise. Jamie Keene, he mishit a couple of them in the Chick-fil-A Bowl when he punted when Wing was suspended, but he also launched a few, and overall is a better athlete than Wing. And I think him having a year to get used to it and to get adjusted, I think he'll have a good year. I don't know that he'll be as good as Wing because Wing looked like a really good natural punter.
Sure.
I mean, just a natural stroke with his leg. But Keene is a better athlete, and so they may be better off with him anyway. Big
picture, LSU's coming off two disappointing finishes. I mean, 2 years ago they were undefeated, playing for the national title, had a very deflating loss to Alabama. Last year, lost a couple of close games that they could have won, could have been a different season, but here they are coming off back-to-back bowl defeats. Can LSU step back, return to elite status in 2013, and is the seat getting a bit warm for Coach Les Miles?
I wouldn't think so. I think for the most part, I bet he gets a pass this year. People will look at what happened, especially if they struggle on defense. People are going to say, well, it wasn't his fault. I mean, I'm sure he didn't expect all these guys to leave. And even though they prepare for these eventualities, you can never be prepared for that many leaving at one time. I can't remember the last time LSU had to replace 8 starters on either offense or defense, and that's just a little bit too much to overcome. On the other hand, I think the SEC is I think outside of Alabama, LSU's right there with everybody else in the SEC, including Texas A&M. I think they'll get a lot of run. Texas A&M will, as the #2 team in the West. Ultimately, I think LSU will come out, and I would pick them behind Alabama right now. And that's because I think Texas A&M is going to I think the expectations are going to catch up with them and their fabulous quarterback, Johnny Manziel. Yeah, so I think LSU will probably struggle a little bit early. It'll be hard to win at Georgia, and it'll be really hard to win at Alabama. But everything else, I think they're capable of winning the other games. Florida's going to be tough to beat at home, but they got a tough schedule, and so I think it would be I don't think it would be improper to lower expectations compared to last year.
And as spring ball gets underway this week, what are the biggest keys for LSU? What does Coach Miles really want to see his team achieve over the next month?
Well, I think some bonding with Cam Cameron, the offense bonding with Cam Cameron. I think LSU may have to outscore a few people this year, and that's going to be important that the offense does not struggle again, because it seems like a forever since LSU has had a really coherent, together offense. I know 2011 they relied kind of on the defense and the special teams to set them up, but they really have to gel there, and I think the linchpin is left tackle. If the left tackle thing is settled early, they can concentrate on other things, can get the offensive line strong. That'll help the running game, and that'll help, which will in turn help the passing game. If they can just, not be too bad on defense, if they can just not fall off too much, which is going to be hard, they've got the athletes to do it. And it will be how big will experience be when they're playing out, when they're out there on defense and winning games in the fourth quarter. That's where it's going to show up. And
one final quick question about Ricky Jefferson. Made some headlines recently. His arrest in February, and currently facing charges of resisting arrest with violence. How much of an issue is this moving forward for that young man and for this program? Do you see the program parting ways, or will they look to find out all the information first before making any kind of decision on his playing status?
Well, I think you should always wait and find out the information, get his side of the story. When police arrest someone, there's always another side to the story, and you should always hear that. You should hear what he has to say. One question they need to ask him is, why didn't he say anything about this? Because apparently Les didn't know, and this happened 4 days before he signed. So there may be an out for LSU in this if they so choose, and I don't think they would ever make a decision on it. You can see from the Shady's deal that they wait until they gather all the facts. This is how coaches operate. They want to be fair with their guys. They don't want to jump the gun on it, but they're going to sit down and talk to him, and they're going to decide whether or not this is salvageable. And it's really up in the air. There's no way to predict how it's going to happen, because, of course, I'm just finding out about it too. I've hardly had a chance to investigate it myself. So. But I think Les will definitely give him a fair hearing. I think he's known for that, and he will do that.
Jim Kleinpeter of the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.